Hey, I'm on the edge of my seat here, back again with another brand new video. Kiwami 3 is real! It exists! I'm not a fan, let's get into it. Spoilers for every single game in the franchise. These are my first impressions after seeing the first trailers and reveal of this project. I'm gonna warn you, I'm gonna come at this a bit rough and tough. I'm biased. I wasn't really that big on the Kiwamis beforehand, and recently, I'm not very big on the guidance beforehand either, so that does color what I'm going to say here. I know that there's a lot of people who have been waiting for this for a really long time, and are ecstatic that it's happening at all. I am not that person, so take what I'm about to say with a grain of salt, because I am going to come at this a bit tough. I actually quite like the original Yakuza 3. It's not my favorite. There's a good chunk of games I'd put below 3, and there's a good chunk of games I'd put above 3. A big part of what keeps me coming back to it is the gameplay. So it's always baffling to me that people treat this one like it plays like fucking Daggerfall compared to the modern games. The whining about how dated the combat is, I find completely overblown. The Yakuza games are generally pretty casual since the very first entry, but to return to the gameplay of 3 specifically, it has a very unique aspect to it which has some of my favorite boss fights in the franchise, whose movesets are fucking terrible to fight anywhere else. Here's where their spoilers kick in. Andre is so much fun to fight in 3. The dodge and bounding mechanics make it such a fast-paced, explosive encounter, and that moveset anywhere else is one of the most miserable things to deal with whenever it shows up, especially in the Dragon Engine. Man in Black and Kiwami 2, that fucker from Judgment, and so many more examples are just some of the most miserable experiences I've had with this franchise. Tamashiro is also a fight which shines only in 3 because every other time he shows up it's one of the top 3 worst fights in the game. Shout out the Majima Saga, fuck that fight. Rikia has always kind of sucked. I don't like him in the original 3, but wouldn't you know, it's even worse in the Dragon Engine. There's a couple things which have to be mentioned about Yakuza 3. The big ones is damage and blocking. These two are some of the biggest talking points revolving around the original, and they're two things which I think are very overblown. For the most part, I'm a really big fan of just how little damage you deal in the original 3. Having played the entire franchise, I'm a little sick of just how nuclear you are in like future entries, especially with heat actions. 3 doesn't exactly strike the right balance, but for boss fights specifically, I think it works really well, especially for someone who likes no damaging the games. Like, these 1v1 boss fights feel like an actual event, like something I need to have like patience, resilience to actually push my way through. While in future entries, I have to go out of my way to customize my character to deal less damage so I don't like nuke them in less than a minute. The ideal damage output would be something like in between Yakuza 3 and Yakuza 4, but the majority of the series just kind of goes for Yakuza 4 and beyond. Though I do have to compliment the modern games for having a level of customization involved with how much attack you want to deal, especially with their upgrade trees, which pretty much separate attack into a completely separate tree from all the skills that would make your no damage more interesting. So I do appreciate that. Kiwami 3 should keep that going. The blocking in 3 is a really confusing issue for a multitude of reasons. The common consensus is that the remaster's boost to 60 FPS made enemies more aggressively defensive. And this is true, but so you play the game on normal or hard on the PS3, I did that, and enemies do block less. It's not as defensive as the remasters, your dodge isn't as finicky in the remasters. So the original version on the PS3 is the non-broken version, but once you play on Legend, enemies block just as much as they do in the remasters. In fact, Yakuza 3 on Legend on the original PS3 is probably harder than the remasters because gun enemies actually shoot you. So playing the remasters on normal or hard seems to be like playing Legend on the PS3. The thing is, playing Legend on the PS3 is really fun. You can make use of your environment, bounding options, dodging behind the enemy to really great use to do these no damages. Also, another thing which makes this confusing is that there's like slight differences in how broken each remaster is, because like the PS4 and PC versions have different issues and so on and so forth. So it does seem that if you have a PS3, maybe it's best to play that version, despite some of the improvements that the PS4 version brings. But I've played the PS4 version and I had a great time with it. Another thing that worries me with the combat is that despite these Kiwami games being newer versions that should feel less frustrating than the originals, they tend to design their combat encounters to actually infuriate even more than the originals ever did. Jingu, the MIA encounter, Man in Black, Tarada, the Shangri-La Long battle, just a couple sections that were nowhere near as frustrating in the original games. So despite people clamoring for a remake of 3 because enemies block too much, I'm sure they're gonna find a way to accidentally make things even worse. By the will of Kiwami, the Lao Kao Long battle will have triple the enemy account with all the same movesets and everyone will suffer. And that final boss is incredible, but what's really concerning is that they never made a fight like him again in this series. The fact that he could switch fighting styles throughout the entire fight is incredible, but every time they did a multi-style boss fight after 3, they would always lock each style to a specific health threshold. And that's another thing. Are they keeping the same movesets? Because by this point in time, they have reused all of these movesets hundreds of times. Reaching Mine in the remake is gonna lose some luster when it dawns on me. I fought Ninja Fortnite Man like 3 weeks ago and he fought exactly the same. Kiwami 1 and 2 ignored original movesets and copy and pasted like crazy, which makes me think they never do 3 because that's one of the games that we're pasting from this entire time. I mean, what the fuck are they gonna do? Copy and paste itself? That's how it's gonna feel. These Kiwami productions seem to be like cheaper affairs to kind of bridge the gap between some of the bigger releases, like the upcoming Stranger Than Heaven. So I'm worried they're not going to recreate too much stuff from the ground up, so the corners cut are gonna look a lot worse. Also, the Komaki parry was such a godsend in 3, and I say this because your parry options in the previous Gaiden games leave something to be desired. I wasn't the biggest fan of the parry in 6, but it had its uses, so the complete removal of it in Gaiden 1 was absurd, and the lack of any good parry with Agent was ass backwards. That automatic dodge reaction you do in extreme heat mode just doesn't count, doesn't cut it. That shit just plays the game for you. I don't want my parry locked behind spending heat, I want it locked behind my ability to perform the maneuver. I think like the only games which lock a parry behind heat is like Gaiden 1 and Fist of the North Star Lost Paradise. This series, after Lost Judgment, has been going out of its way to get rid of improvements in the combat. The previous Gaiden games have me very skeptical about this new combat. I'm glad Agent isn't back, but this weapon style kinda looks like it might have the same issues. But I would have to get my own hands on it because the people that got playing the games in these trailers kinda suck. It's not their fault. It's their first time playing the game, what are you gonna do? I'm really worried the weapon style is gonna have like a ton of commitment with its normal combos, making it slow, over-animated, and unwieldy, forcing you to spam some underdeveloped, overpowered gimmick like the gadgets in Gaiden. I really hope they learned their lesson, that your extreme heat mode shouldn't get rid of your normal combo. And I really hope they don't give you a launcher with your final heavy attack that you can't swap out of with Agent. Also, certain weapon combos being locked behind hold inputs? That doesn't sound like it flowed naturally. I mean, hey, people have found a way to do flux fixtures and juggle combos, so maybe there's a way to work it out, but the change from one weapon to another better be really quick. Like, I really don't want to wait for Kirito to like pick his nose to switch to nunchucks or something. The Yakuza or Dragon style in this game is actually turning out pretty interesting from what we're seeing, because it's not like Gaiden's version of the combat where they took his Yakuza 6 combat and kind of judgmentified it. This is more like that, but with the animations from the original Dragon of Dojima style. These finisher attacks, they're the classic ones. You even have the double hammer fist that you spam a ton in 3. Even though the second finisher attack has more stun properties, but you know, we'll get into that. No, I won't. I think it's pretty cool that that big flip kick is finally back and you don't need to do like an awkward charge attack for it like in Yakuza 6. And it just being back at all is pretty cool, because that's the coolest thing which Yakuza 3 introduced. So for it to be gone in the remake would make me kind of sad, but it's here. They seem to be bringing back a lot of older tech. Like, you can pick enemies off the ground. It's been a minute since you could do that. And I think I saw some weird Shinada tackle. I think that's probably just a tackle which Beast had, or Kaito's version of Beast had, so that's kind of here. It still has a lot of the properties from like the Kiwami 2 Gaiden version. You can do like the Beast, like, charge attacks. Those attacks were always awkward. They had like the one utility use in Kiwami 2 which broke the game kind of, for better. But yeah, it's always been weird just having those things randomly in your arsenal. So yeah, so from trailers, there's a lot of things that look really peachy, but from my experience with the first Gaiden, combo speed is a really big one for me. You do start off pretty slow in Yakuza 3, but once you're fully upgraded, that speed is marvelous, and I'm not sure if this remake is going to reach the exact same speed. I really want speed upgrades, because when I popped in Gaiden and I did that, and like I played the first playthrough on New Game because it didn't have New Game Plus, and I saw how slow I was like, okay, I'm going to get an upgrade for this later. And then when I found out there were 0 upgrades for it, that was one of the cruelest jokes RGG has played on me, and fool me once, shame on you. fool me twice, I'm still gonna buy your game. The original Yakuza 3's stun and bounding properties also led to some really fun explosions of combat. Something which basically died with Yakuza 5, so it didn't originate with the Dragon Engine, but the Dragon Engine hasn't really brought back bounding in a significant way. The way Yakuza 3 feels to like hit enemies off walls is kind of like Virtua Fighter, a little bit of Tekken, just the way you can keep hitting them and they just keep floating around. It's so satisfying, and it's such a unique feel. And that's like a reason I never really wanted a Kiwami 3, because I didn't want it to get replaced with like Dragon Engine-esque combat. And that was back when my example of Dragon Engine combat was Yakuza 6 and Kiwami 2. So now we have Gaiden, we have Lost Judgment, we have Pirate Yakuza, and still they don't really replicate that exact feel. So there's going to be a lot of parts of Kiwami 3 where I'm just going to be looking at the original and saying, okay, can I do this in Kiwami 3? Can I do this? Or this? And perhaps, is it maybe possible to do this? And it's quite possible that the answer is going to be no to all of those, but there might be new tech to exploit with these new systems, making for new types of combos, so on and so forth. Also, yeah, what's going on with the juggles? Once again, I have to get my hands on this to confirm, but given the track record from before that, it's not looking hot. I don't buy this argument that it creates more creative gameplay when you tend to be slower and less capable in these newer games. These claims about Lost Judgment being juggle slop or being overly dependent on combos dependent on juggles, I just don't buy it when these future games after the fact limit your ground combos even more and just give you less options overall. Not just less in juggles, but less everywhere else, so this increased creativity, I'm just not seeing it. Something that I really appreciate about the first half of this franchise is just the combat progression, playing from the very first game, like up to 0. The way each game builds up top of itself has been really satisfying. These improvements also tend to line up narratively with Kiryu, and it just feels like such a great connection with the game. And yeah, some of this is a massive reuse of assets, but I think it worked really well back then. But then with Kiwami 1, we kind of started getting more of a story order, and if you play in story order, I think things get a little out of whack. Yakuza 0 combat, Kiwami 1 combat, okay, there's a connection, then Kiwami 2 combat's just 6, which is like, huh? So now with Kiwami 3, the order, like the story order is going to be like Yakuza 0, 4 styles, Kiwami 1, 4 styles, Kiwami 2, Yakuza 6 style, Kiwami 3, Gaiden style, except it's also a little bit like 6 because we're getting some of those moves back with like finishers from the original game. It's a fucking weird system. Then you go back to Yakuza 4? I don't know. It's about time to mention the elephant in the room. The character changes are baffling. Rikiya is one of the most iconic sidekicks in the franchise, and his character design is a huge part of it. Completely flipping it is a massive mistake. The rumors I hear is that the original actor was too expensive to get for this remake, and on that level I believe that they shouldn't have made this remake at this time if schedules weren't aligning or if it's just too expensive to get. I kind of wish they would get more money and then come back to this later. The change made to Hamazaki I think is more insulting because he had a very distinctive look. I am open to more bold changes with Hamazaki because in the original story, there's certain aspects of his arc that get rushed by really quickly. And especially with the way he plays into 4, some more backstory on him or just like more time dedicated to him would have been really helpful. The one thing I didn't want changed was him. This new guy doesn't look like him at all. So it's just so confusing. The old man I can kinda get behind, mostly because I hear a lot of buzz around his actor being an all-time legend, but changing the character design from the original, it just doesn't fit. He had like such a great like old man warmth to him before, and I'm just not feeling it with this new guy. I don't know this man. This man's not my family. Get out of here. All these character designs felt way too important for them to just throw them out the window. Usually with these modern remakes, they'll change the original character designs, but they'll keep the basics the same. You know, like the coat will be slightly different. Some outfits will have like different pieces here and there. Some will have like a more modern look, but the basic shape is still there. This is just a completely new fucking guy. Hell, even when they recast someone in like Yakuza 4, he got to keep the same outfit and general vibe. This is completely absurd. This is out of left field. Out of everything they could have changed in a new Kiwami, this never crossed my mind. They're kind of reaching new possibilities to make me disdain the Kiwamis more. They seem to still be carrying over complaints I've had with the first 2 Kiwamis. The cutscenes seem copy and pasted from the original, but with very HD models, so certain animations just look really out of whack. There's also brand new cutscenes like in Kiwami 1, so the differences might be more noticeable. Though I will say the lighting in cutscenes looks pretty nice. The lighting in-game I really hope it doesn't look like Pirate Yakuza, because like the way that game would change like daytime, like they would like try to replicate the feeling of your eyes adjusting to the sun, looked terrible. Don't do that again. Also, there's Kiryu with that new fucking shirt. Why is his shirt so fucking green? Honestly, the shirt looks more blue than green. Shut up! It's like if in Kiwami 1, like instead of donning like the gray suit with the red shirt, the shirt's now like beige with like purple tones. Like, that's his character design. That's like his whole color hue. What, you're just gonna change it out of the blue for the remake? What the fuck are you going on about? I'm gonna return to this point later. I think Kiwami 3 sets a bad precedent moving forward. If they're willing to do 3, they're going to do 4. They're not that different, and hell, there's a majority that thinks it's even worse than 3. That's not me, but the outcry is there. Fuck it, let's get a third actor for Tanimura. Let's retroactively introduce Kanai in 4 to make Kiwami 5 really epic. Shout out to the Yakuza 0's director's cut. Yeah, Nishitani II's coming back. This remake pipeline seems just so clear and vivid, it's depressing. Mine Gaiden. It looks interesting. Apparently it's based on something from RGG Online, which is still to this day the only Yakuza I have never played. I am not downloading a translation patch for like a gacha game. Either put it in English, put it on my phone, or I'm not hopping on at all. So whether or not Mine raw dogs Daigo in the back of the coupe depends on whether or not it happened in RGG Online, I guess, unless they take creative liberties. I'm interested in a darker tone and fleshing out Mine and Kanda's relationship, because if something like, if a friendship actually builds between them in this short story, it's gonna make the final events of 3 even more psychotic. When I say I'm interested in a darker tone, I don't know about this Shadow the Hedgehog shit he's doing in gameplay, like you are not him, buddy. Cease the silly act. The boxing combat seems really fun, but I gotta try it out to see how well it flows. Jumping off enemies is a nice way to bring back some Yagami flair, though Kanda taking the place of the Akame network seems fucking terrible. Yeah, I'd kill him too for that. This short saga has also taken the dubious honor of carrying on Kiwami's green! Mine, in a last-ditch effort to save Daigo, takes away the green of Kamurocho and rebuilds his body to create a cure, modifying his heart, liver, lungs.
The green side, the physical side, is nothing more than a 1.5% rise in your mitochondrial protein uptake.
And the blue side.
The most positive aspect of this new Mine game is that apparently the main scenario writer is the same person who wrote all of Yamai's sections in Infinite Wealth, which I think were by far my favorite parts of the game. So here's hoping to a really interesting character study with darker undertones. Maybe something more in line with maybe Yakuza 1 or 2. Let's get more crime drama with it, hopefully. The existence of a Mine Gaiden is kind of an issue with the fact that it basically spoils the ending of the game. I don't know, I feel like the first playthrough of Yakuza 3, you have all these options who could maybe be the final boss fight, only for Mine to come out with his own like backstory. Yeah, I wonder who the final boss fight's gonna be. But to be fair, this isn't exactly a Kiwami 3 issue. This series loves to spoil everything in their reveals. They have zero regard for someone's first time playthrough. But inversely, they also say that every single game they make is a perfect jumping on in point. Yeah, Gaiden is a perfect place for newcomers. Get the fuck out of here. Let's talk about side content. I hated the club management in Yakuza 3. It getting added back into the US PS4 remaster was actually to its detriment. So that getting replaced with some copy and pasted thing from the other games doesn't bother me much. Though they better not remove the Hitman missions. Chasing down a league of boss fights is always some of my favorite stuff in this series. It was really cool in Kenzen, Ishin, Fist of the North Star. In Pirate Yakuza, it kinda sucked ass. They dragged the fuck out of it with like no narrative momentum. There was like no overarching like side quests story. That's like one of the most fun things about it. It was just a bunch of bullshit. You go to the police officer, he's like, oh, you did a good job for fighting 89 people who all had like the same moveset 10 times over by 8. So many Rikias! And Andres! I'm also really curious what's gonna happen to golf and fishing, because the direct really didn't show too much of that. During the orphanage work, we seem to find a fishing minigame that looks kinda similar to the Dondokoto Island one, which I'm not a fan of. The original fishing in Yakuza 3 was brutally challenging to an almost comical degree. Getting a big tuna was harder than any of the actual main story boss fights. It was pretty frustrating, but also like I think it was a really great time, especially when you finally land it. And most of the fishing minigames, like after 3, which adopt a style more similar to Yakuza 0 or the Dondogoto Island one, are pitifully boring. I really don't want them to get rid of the old like arcade style fishing. Please don't do that. I don't have a huge love for that like you know, turf golf that you can play in Yakuza 3. But it's a really iconic part of that game. I mean, they introduced it in that game, so getting rid of it would be a bit weird. And I say getting rid of it because in the reveals of these games, they don't have secrets. They show you everything they have, so if they don't show you a specific thing in a Yakuza Direct, it's not in the game. I mean, I hope that's not the case. Hopefully golf is hiding somewhere. And not like the Yakuza 2 golf, the Yakuza 3 golf. The all-star battle mode where you run across the map fighting all the boss fights, leveling up as you go, that was amazing. I am so glad the PS4 remaster just added that in as a normal thing, because there was something really weird about getting it on PS3. Like, it was DLC, but it was like pre-ordered DLC. You had to like get it from GameStop and you had to get the American shirt. It was some weird fucking shit. And I didn't even know it existed, but it's such a fun mode because you get to strategize how you fight the boss fights. Really hope that comes back in Kiwami 3, but I doubt it, and if it was coming back, they would have shown it. The Cafe Alps murder mystery is one of the best quests in the franchise. The modern game's tendency to handhold really worries me that they'll simplify what is already a nicely simple quest. I've got my eyes on you, RGG, because most of the detective work in Judgment was more simple than that quest in 3, okay? You know, don't fuck this up. The orphanage is getting more to handle. A good chunk of it seems like copies from Ishin Farming and Dongdogoto Island. I'm not saying it right, just roll with it. My assumption is that the Dongdogoto Island section seem heavily downscaled, so while I did like that thing in Infinite Wealth, thank goodness, that shit took forever. Spoiler alert, but I never finished the motorcycle stuff in Lost Judgment, though from first glance, this motorcycle stuff in Kiwami 3 seems more like a Gaiden-ish Coliseum activity where you gather a group of people to fight another big group. It only took nearly 10 years, but bowling is back. Okay, Mine Gaiden has a Coliseum. I mean, hopefully it's neat. I like the Coliseum in Gaiden 1, so if this is more of the same, I'm going in. But in the footage I'm seeing, I think I'm seeing some of the Infinite Wealth's dungeons, which all I have to say to that is no, please, no! I think now it's time to talk about some positives. Well, not so much positives, but things I'm more curious about. I don't know most of these new actors, and I say this because, like I said before, I've seen some excitement over these new choices, mostly with Grandpa. I heard his actor is really great in Takashi Miike films like Audition, and that he could bring a lot to this role. I took that take from this video I saw. There's some changes here that could maybe be cool that I just don't have the context knowledge to pick up on. Kiryu's red shirt in the original is a reference to Santain, which I haven't seen. I saw Hanabi, which is amazing, but now Kiryu's blue shirt, what's that a reference to? I mean, I'm not gonna lie, this is still kind of a negative. Why would you throw out a reference to an iconic Takashi Miike, motherfucker, an iconic Kitano film, to replace it with another reference, if it even is a reference, that is? And they didn't just change it because they were flicking their balls. A big improvement Kiwami 3 can make, not on the original game, but Lost Judgment, is the long battles. Right after Kiwami 2, the way they've been designing the long battle has been very strange. Judgment kinda had a normal one, but also had a lot of really gimmicky ones, but Lost Judgment kinda got it the worst. Because most of the long battles in that game, you fight a big group of enemies, the game pauses, does a big fade into normal exploration gameplay, you walk to your destination, or do like a light jog, and then you enter another big group of enemies, and the stop and start feeling of this, I am not a fan of. This is also the same thing in the Kaito Files. What happened to defeating a group of enemies and then immediately running to the next part of the level, like you mostly do in the previous games? Gaiden actually improved on Lost Judgment, kind of, because some long battles return to the more traditional style, but then there's one long battle that's just exactly the same as the Lost Judgment one, and just momentum just gets killed anytime you defeat a group of enemies. And then Pirate Yakuza's in a strange middle ground of both styles. There's something about Pirate Yakuza's levels that just feel really underwhelming despite all the gimmicks on top of it. And I have a really insane theory. I think it might be because you never fight a guy in a hallway. I think a majority of Pirate Yakuza's levels get really boring because it's just you enter a square, they spawn like 20 enemies inside the square, then once you defeat all those enemies, you run through some empty hallways, and then you go to the next square, they spawn 20 enemies, You run through an empty hallway again, you do like a little pirate gimmick, and then you're done, and that's all the levels in the game. Aside from like maybe a few rare exceptions, that's just how it feels. And I really want Kiwami 3 not to do that, and I especially want Kiwami 3 to not have the Lost Judgment style of like long battle progression. That's just my warning. If you do not heed my warning, then I'm not gonna do anything. I don't have much power. As much as I love my beautiful baby boy, the original Yakuza 3, there's a major issue I have to mention which Kiwami 3 should avoid. The upgrade system. By itself, it's not that much of a problem because the original Yakuza 1 and 2, it works pretty well with that upgrade system. But Yakuza 3 has the gall to hide the best attack speed in the game at the very end of the tech tree. Dear viewer, if you are a new player to the original Yakuza 3, I implore you to min-max the tech tree until you get that ability, because without it, I mean, the second fastest speed is still pretty good, but the fastest speed just makes it so much more enjoyable. You don't need that extra health. Okay, maybe you do need the extra heat, but you don't need that extra health. You don't need the other things. Just get like a couple of beginner skills and then mid-max tech. You will need patience. You will need resilience, because there's going to come a point where all the other abilities are going to take like 30 XPs, while the tech one is going to take like 250. Just stick with it, because max attack, getting it as early as possible is a godsend. And if you don't get it as early as possible, you end up in a situation where late game, all of your abilities are just like take like 250 points to get, and you have to grind even harder. It's a nightmare. I honestly prefer it the way that it's done in Gaiden, where you can completely avoid attack and just get all the cool abilities. And you can still get busted attack with equipment, so you never have to touch the attack button. So yeah, new players aren't always going to have knowledge about how to upgrade themselves optimally, so I'm giving you your Bible. In Yakuza 3, mid-max tech. In most of the modern games, basically starting with Judgment onwards, never upgrade attack. Never! You can use equipment to get the same ability. And I hope Kiwami 3 keeps that tradition of letting you keep your attack as low as possible, but raise it to a busted level with like Bloody Bindings or something. Fuck dual currencies though, don't do that shit again. It's important to mention that despite all the negatives and positives I'm bringing up, most of this video is speculation. There's not much footage of this game out right now, though some people have recorded themselves playing the demo. New footage of this game seems to be coming out pretty fast too, so generally there might be some stuff that I missed. There might be things that I complain about here which might be fixed in like a new gameplay thing when someone actually does a move. Like for example, I just learned right now that the Yakuza 6 parry got added back into Kiwami 3. What? Dang, Gaiden 1's a fucking fraud. Like a Dragon Gaiden? Nah. Like a Dragon, the man who erased his own parry. I'm noticing that the style swaps seem pretty fast. Whether that holds up under heavy scrutiny is my job when I get my hands on it, but it looks like it switches faster than Pirate Yakuza and Gaiden. Also, boss fights seem to keep their original movesets. I'm seeing that with the Kanda fight at the beginning of the Mine saga. The only difference is like an extra move here, and each of the original moves has like 20 new particle effects, including this white flashing NO! No! No, no, no! Kiwami 3, you better not repeat that shit Pirate Yakuza did, where you can perfect guard attacks, but the only perfect guard reversal that you can do is if they do a white flashing attack, despite the fact that you can perfectly guard every attack of their— I hate inconsistency so much. Ugh. It is nice that when I fight Kanda, it's not going to be some random dickhead from 5, but Kanda himself, because he's a unique boss with a moveset made for him, which shows off his specific character. So when you just put another person's moveset on top of him, it's fucking weird, no? I also want to mention a blind spot of my critiques, that some of the issues I'm bringing up here with this remake could be applied to some of the earlier games in the franchise. Like for example, no, all the previous games in the franchise were perfect. Get the fuck out of here. I still don't like Young Ye as Kiryu, though I don't have much of a horse in this race. I don't plan on playing in English, so I won't be playing in English. Though I am curious how the actress for Riona is gonna handle her immense hatred for black people. So now, the question is, when is my Kiwami Rant 2 coming out? Not soon, the game's not out yet. But more importantly, I don't want to jump into this video straight up. I have to make a video on Lost Judgment first, and then the Gaiden games, and when it comes to it, then Kiwami 3. And that's not counting anything else I want to make at this time, which isn't related to either of those things. But in the here and now, these are my first impressions from seeing the trailers. A lot has changed since Kiwami 2. I don't think the same. I don't play these games the same. I'm not the same man I used to be 5 to 7 years ago. I'm losing track of it. I am constantly reevaluating my thoughts on all the games. My rankings are a pain in the ass. I don't feel solid about anything. I feel like I'm always 3 to 8 playthroughs away from having a full grasp on where I would rank some of these games. I think I'm growing out of the Yakuza franchise slightly. I'm at a point where I would be fine with this series being over, or ending, though its current success suggests that would be the most baffling direction to take. It's in a really great place right now. In terms of sales, Infinite Wealth did great. And from what I'm hearing, Gaiden and Pirate Yakuza seem to have really good word of mouth aside from the diehard fans. For now, I'll still be playing the games, no damaging, etc. I mean, I'm here for the long haul, but I think playing these games on the edge of my seat since 2016 has kind of left me at a loss from where to go from here. When is Kiryu gonna fucking die? Actually, just one more thing. Here's a trigger warning because I'm going to be talking about sexual assault. The new actor for Hamazaki sexually assaulted 2 women in a hostess club a few years back. This was something that came to light while I was in the middle of editing this video, but I thought it was important to mention. This series has recasted people over fake allegations of drug use and overuse of cocaine. I find this act far more deplorable than those previous 2 examples, so I think RGG should step up and remove him from the game.